Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the American Scouser podcast. I am going to be hosting tonight. My name is Gally. I am joined by Bickler. Paul, how are you on this? Well, at least in the Northeast, a rainy, cold, gross March Monday.
Actually, not too bad down here in the South weather-wise, right? So a little spring-like sunshine, a little breezy. Nice thing about this morning is we didn't get the chill like we normally get in the winter. It was like cool but not cold.
Okay.
The worst thing about today is we're really going to figure out how dedicated we are to the show or how bored people are tonight to tune into us talk about whatever nonsense we're going to fill an hour with.
Yeah, we're going to figure that out as we go because as far as show prep goes, I was prepared enough to know that I was hosting at about midday today. And yes, that just means I do rely on Timuchin way too much. Brian Shelton's one of those bored people. Evening, guys. Evening, Brian Shelton. Thank you for joining us from your bunker. We appreciate you jumping in here. And as everyone, if you're in the chat, please go ahead. Drop a comment like Brian Shelton. If you talk about trivia, it won't normally get it up on the screen, but I have to show it seeing that I was making a point. But yeah, give us a comment. We'll bring them up on air. If it's relevant to the topic we're on, we'll get at it. If not, who knows? Maybe you'll start an argument with somebody in the chat. Crazier things have happened on one of our shows. But then again, if you ask for it, as Timuchin would say, you get it. And in honor of Sir Z tonight, we're going to skip playing the trivia music that drives him so crazy. Probably won't be with us tonight for the show, but we're thinking of him nonetheless. All the thoughts to you, my friend, you and your family. So we are going to do a trivia, quick one tonight. Paul, we're going to talk a little bit about the transfers. We don't have much more to talk about in an international break, especially one where you've had we've had two shows on this network or on this channel since we last played a match, and we're going to have another show before we play another match. So we're not going to talk anymore about the League Cup or PSG outside of the disappointment of it. Maybe a little later of why this international break was important. But trivia brought to us by our good friend BJ as always, and with the theme of transfers on the topic. Paul, I ask you, who are the 5 former players that Liverpool received the highest transfer fee when sold? I'll let you do it in any order you want. You don't have to tell me how much they sold them for. We'll touch on some of them, but I think obviously you probably know the number one because I'm pretty sure we all know who the most expensive footballer Liverpool ever sold was.
Well, Coutinho's in there, right?
That is number one at 142 million pounds. When he was sold in January of 2019. So 6+ years ago, Coutinho left. So we got 4 more, all of which these aren't, I think you know well enough. None of these are guys that are like so far back you can't remember.
I'm just trying to think. I can't remember what we got for Raheem Sterling. That was a lot. Raheem Sterling's got to be there.
Raheem Sterling is in the list. He is 4th at 49 million, sold to Manchester City.
49. Torres went for 50, right?
Torres was number 3, went for 50 to Chelsea in January of 2011. So who could have been between Fernando Torres and Phil Coutinho over 50 million?
Suarez?
Suarez is the answer for the second. And then that takes us to the 5th one. And I got to tell you, I would have had a hard time guessing this. But after seeing it and the numbers and everything, it is.
I'm trying to think of big players we had with big moves. I don't think this is right, but I'm going to go Alonso. Javi?
It's not Alonso. Believe it or not, Ryan Shelton got it. It's Fabinho at 40 million to Saudi Arabia. So
I would
that blew my mind.
I would have said Sadio Mane next, I think. So
yeah, I think he was only 25 million to Bayern because I know Sir Z isn't on tonight because he was sandbagging and had already basically forced his way out of the club. We only got 25 million for him. And basically Bayern, I think, would have given us another 25 million if we could have just made it so he never walked into their dressing room. Because I think 3 players actually claimed they left Bayern. He was a absolute terror in Bayern. Just an absolute, sounded like he was just a menace there. And I have a feeling like he had that in him all along. But that's also what made him a great, great player. And at Liverpool, it all worked because he was able to be central to all the good things we did, but was never the face of the club. And I think he wanted to be the face, but I wonder if he was. If we had more, we might have seen more of the Southampton version of Sadio Mane, the one that actually scared big clubs like Arsenal and Manchester United off at times, based on some of the reports about his attitude and such. Brian Shelton says, I forgot about Suarez, said nobody who was ever bitten by him. So we will jump into it here, Paul. So we hit the proverbial international break blues. But I got to ask you, was this the perfect time for an international break as a Liverpool supporter, for the fact that we had the big disappointment of exiting the final 2 knockout phase competitions we were in within a span of 5 days of each other, the disappointment with how great this season, I've spent 4 days listening for the little amount of time that I pay attention to things, as most listeners will pick up on in the next hour. Lately, all I've heard is this is dampening the excitement about the league, because it's almost like they had their hopes built up for so much that now just the biggest of all the prizes that we thought we were the furthest from reclaiming, right, is basically in our grasp, and we still can't be happy. I almost feel like those 2 matches in some ways were the sport's powerful being telling Liverpool fans to go have a timeout. Sit in the corner and think about what the hell you are whining about. And they're not listening, by the way.
So I think to your original question, you just kind of answered it, right? Is this the perfect time for this break? It's the perfect time for the players. It's probably the worst time for people like us, where we have no redo on our social media algorithms. So we're sucked in too deep at this point. So we are connected in a way where we are not insulated from essentially 4 weeks of bitching. It's great for the players to get this break. I think it's exhausting for a lot of us who are plugged in and have to listen to people whine and capitulate about how either we're not spending enough money, this team should have been turned over already, or how we still can't win the big matches when they matter, et cetera, et cetera. So, worst time for us, best time for this team. I think the team needed a reload, it needed a break, needed a refresher. Obviously, they looked absolutely legged through the last 2 big matches.
Yeah, it was a tough one. I wasn't on with you guys last Monday night. We're not going to go back into the League Cup final. Obviously, it was a really disappointing end to that League Cup campaign. I just think the combination of the Gakpo injuries and guys running out of gas. I do think the emotional letdown of the draw with PSG, or the draw over 2 legs and losing on penalties. I think being out of the Champions League, some felt it might galvanize the side on that Sunday. Look, I don't think Liverpool is good enough to win the League Cup, but let's not take anything away from Newcastle. The players were up for it. The supporters were absolutely up for it. And because Brian Shelton's the only person in the chat, I can let him know Eddie Howe was clearly up for it too, because he absolutely smacked us around from a tactical standpoint and did something that no other manager has done there in a long, long time on Tyneside. So, got to be fair to that one. We should have Matoush take a immediate receipts like screenshot of Brian Shelton saying anyhow is amazing. He does deserve some credit for what he's doing this season, and we'll see how that goes. Brian, we kid because we love you. But it was a disappointing result, but I'm not bent out of shape from it. If we had won it, and that's all we won this year, there would have been supporters calling it a Mickey Mouse Cup and saying we didn't beat anyone on the way to winning it, and that it was an easy run and we got the luck of the draw. So, and it doesn't really mean anything. So I kind of have to take it kind of with a grain of salt. But what I do want to do is look at the upcoming fixtures, because obviously Liverpool sits, 12 points adrift, top of the table at this point on equal games. So Arsenal has played their game in hand. We're 12 points ahead, puts us in a great, great position. We have this graphic here, Paul, that outlines the next 6 matches for the club, starting with Everton, then Fulham, then we get West Ham, Leicester City, Spurs, and Chelsea. So I guess I wanted to ask you, we'll talk a lot more about the Everton match next Monday night in preparation for the big fixture, but do you feel like coming off of those 2 tough results and getting, not only an international break, but kind of a supersized international break, do you think Everton is at home is almost the perfect opponent, or would you rather be landing with like a West Ham at this point? Because I almost feel like in some ways, as good as they are playing right now, Everton and revitalized under Moyes, like they might literally be walking into a proverbial buzzsaw like they're not expecting.
I don't know, man. I here's my thing. Like, we very rarely look our best coming off an international break. A. B, I think if you're telling me this team needs to play Everton to get locked in and get ready to rock, like going back into this thing, like we have bigger problems. I don't think it's necessarily going to matter who they're playing next. I would just hope that they're going to come in and look sharp, right? I have serious reservations, like I said, just because I don't think we ever do it coming off of a break, very rarely. So I think the only thing that you could say that is a benefit to this is that, like, if you're typically sluggish coming off international breaks, 2 things are going to happen. You're going to get rolled versus a very physical Everton side, which very well could happen. Or you're going to go in and you're going to take a physical pounding in there, and you're going to come away with a hard-fought 3 points, which maybe is the injection this team needs to start believing in itself again. And I don't know that that's necessarily a side that doesn't believe in itself as much as it was a team trying to do things very much like we saw under Klopp time and time again, physically, that it wasn't able to do. Like, it was just physically unable to do the things the system was demanding of itself during those last couple matches. So hopefully the legs are there. I don't love that fixture coming off international break for all the reasons that I said. But, I don't think it's an ideal fixture for us to roll into. I'd much rather coming to a team that's going to allow us to openly play in a way that's not as, physically abrasive.
I think where I come from is and I definitely take what you're saying. And if this was a lunchtime kickoff, which, let's not kid ourselves, if this were being played on the weekend, it would be the Saturday 12:30 game, just to make sure that half of Liverpool isn't shithouse cocked by the time it was time to actually play this football match, right? They would have probably had it be a lunchtime kickoff. This game is Wednesday. The international break ends on Thursday. Players should be back on Friday. So for once, we're actually going to get guys to get back, get recovery, and actually have 2-3 days, because the FA, it's a weird one here where the FA Cup quarterfinals are this weekend. And because we're out of the Cup, it's actually pushing us all the way out till Wednesday. So, we're playing this one. So it almost is like a 2.5 week break. So I'm hoping, and I'm not saying it's definite, but I'm with you. I've always felt the same way. We come out sluggish. We don't look great. I think some of that is we've had so many key South American players play so many minutes, and then they come back from these long trips where they're flying all over the continent and all over the world. And to me, I think that's a big key here. I think that could be different. I also think some of the players who really needed a break is, guys like Gravenberch went to international duty and was sent home, but now they're saying it was just a knock and a precaution. He should be ready to go. So he gets an extra, couple weeks off. I'm just hopeful that a few of the guys that needed some minutes get the breathers they need. And I'm also hopeful that we get and see a little bit more rotation during that period. So let me ask you, Paul, let's not go all the way down. Let's just talk these first 3 or 4 fixtures. What do you feel is a fair number of points, say, from those first 4 out the gate? Would you sign off for 9 out of the 12? Do you want 10 out of the 12? Do you need all 12? Like, what are your thoughts here? What would make you happy? What would you sign off for right now if I gave it to you in the old proverbial sign your soul to the devil?
I mean, I think ideally you want to come away with at least 9. I think ideally you'd want to come out of there with 9. I'm not panicking if it's, if they come away with, out of those 4 fixtures, if they come away with 7, I'm not panicking. But I think you want to come away out of there with 9. And the funny thing about that is you could look at that. You can look at those 4 fixtures and say, oh, that's a really nice run-in. You can also look at those fixtures and say, those are some sneaky sides in there. Like the way Everton's playing right now, the way West Ham can be physical, especially in the mids, the way Fulham can score goals. Like, you can talk yourself into that set of fixtures either way, I think.
Yeah, I honestly, in some ways, for the way we play, even though it's always high scoring and kind of like a basketball game when we play them, I worry less about Spurs than I do about Fulham away. Mm-hmm. And it's not because I still think on their day at top level, I would take Spurs to win a match if I had to, because I think they have more talent. They haven't been healthy for a long, long time, and every team in this league can say that. Chelsea really doesn't scare me, but I would love the league to be put to bed before that. So the reason I asked you that was Arsenal's coming fixtures. They play Fulham at home on Tuesday. So Arsenal has to play that game before us. And if for any reason they drop some points there, then I definitely don't want to be Everton if Liverpool knows that like their tails are up and they're coming for it on Wednesday. I love the fact they have to go first in this. They then travel to Everton, which Everton's already taken points off Arsenal once this year with a draw at the Emirates. Then they play Real Madrid at home, Brentford at home, second leg in Madrid. Like, that's their next 5 fixtures. And I guess I ask you this. We've all heard are you conceding the league over my dead body? But they have some serious injury concerns. So can Mikel Arteta actually throw out the same 11 for all 5 of those fixtures and honestly believe he has a chance over 2 legs against a superior side? Or does he really have to quietly rotate and play his squad to make sure that the fittest and best chance is there for him to play Real Madrid over those 2 legs? Because let's be real, their whole season hinges on that tie, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, he's going to have to. He's going to have to rotate. There's no way. A lot of these guys, especially on their defensive side, are just coming back from being injured, long-term injuries too. So, I think I don't know how he would pull that off over 5 fixtures without rotating. In doing so, pretty heavily too. I don't know that he's got I don't see a way around it for him.
So I guess I'll ask you this: will the league be done within Liverpool's next 4 fixtures?
Yes.
Yeah, I agree. I actually think the thing might be done before they even start the Real Madrid fixtures, which might be the best thing for anyone who isn't rooting for Real Madrid to win. And I will say this, when PSG beat us, the first thing that went through my mind was, I so hope Unai Emery goes on the revenge tour and literally just beats PSG over 2 legs at Villa, and then beats Arsenal over 2 legs, gets to the finals, and just drops it on the table, wins the thing, and beats Barcelona in the finals. And it's like, I've been doing this to all of you forever. I am the greatest. Like, he will literally go Jose Mourinho on the world. He'll be talking in third person. He'll literally be up on the dais. It would be absolutely brilliant.
How many Europas has he won? I feel like it's got to be like 9.
I think he won 4 in a row.
Yeah,
at Sevilla, and then he got Villarreal to a final. It's just unbelievable what that man can do in a knockout competition. So it'll be really, really interesting. So we touched on the fixtures. We touched on kind of the international break. We are going to talk transfers, or at least about the squad. But what I thought we would do, Paul, a little different. Instead of talking about guys we might bring in, I thought we'd look at the player groups by position and talk more or less about which ones we see as, like, absolute keepers, maybes, you know what I mean? Like, where we see them going and what they might do. We won't spend long on the goalkeeper position because God knows it just elicits anger from our Italian friends when we talk about it.
Oh, God.
I'm an Irish friend. Sorry, you're not Italians. You guys would absolutely hate him if he was Italian. So, Alisson Becker, Quimmen Kelleher, Jaros, and the young English keeper Davies. Obviously, we also know we have the big Georgian keeper on loan at Valencia right now in the wings to come in. So, first and foremost, Paul, will Mamardashvili be a Liverpool keeper next season? Will he be sold? Will he be loaned out again?
Yes, I think he'll be a Liverpool keeper. I kind of feel like he's going to go back out on loan. And my hope is that he's going to like a mid-table to lower table Premier League side. That's my hope.
Yeah, I agree with you. That was what I said last summer. When they bought him, I said feels like it could be a 2-year deal where he's on loan for 1 year. He goes out to prove himself in the Premier League for a second. Are you comfortable with Alisson Becker starting and potentially Jaros being his backup? Or do you think they need to buy a Premier League proven number 2 based on both, Becker's age and propensity to kick the ball out with the outside of his boot and rip a hamstring?
I'm completely fine with Jaros as your backup. I mean, and this is, I don't know. I can't win in this conversation. I don't mean to be disrespectful to Kelleher, but we've gotten by with like a backup keeper that had question marks for almost a decade, right? Like, I feel like we're fine with that situation. I don't think you need to go spend money on a proven veteran. And there's not a ton out there. There, like we talk about that. There's not a ton of like proven old veteran keepers out there anymore. But there is a lot of keeper prospects out. I just think you kind of go with what you have unless you have a clear succession plan that you're going to put in play. And I think we're still like a year and a half out from that.
Yeah, there's part of me that does question whether they would just. I mean, it just feels to me like they're going through this whole contract thing right now. So it feels like they either know in their heart that they have the long-term successor to Alisson somewhere in the ranks, whatever that may be, or that they understand that, they're looking to cash in and maybe you give Ali a bumper, 2-year deal or something. He's proven keepers can play till they're into their mid to late 30s. If you believe he could do it, maybe you keep him for a year or 2 more. You let Mamardashvili get his value up and or prove that he can be the keeper of the future, one or the other. I'm with you. I think Jaros is fine to be the backup. And I think you can get 20 to 30 million for Kelleher. Maybe not that high just because he has 1 year left. And he's losing homegrown status. But I'll tell you this right now, and I know that people will say I'm crazy. I don't care who comes in with the bid. Chelsea, West Ham. I don't care if it's Spurs. Like, I'm dead serious. I don't care what team came in with if they gave the right number, I'd sell him, because I think he's as much a product of being a really good number 2 keeper who's had world-class defenders in front of him and a great setup around him. And I've said this before, I think he'd be leaking goals like the kid at Leicester if he played with Wout face in front of him. Kicking it in his own goal, getting multiple own goals in the same match. So it'll be interesting to see where he ends up. Does he go to like a big club? Does he go to a club at a European type level? There's been talk of him maybe going to Bournemouth with one of the 800 players that we are linked with that are currently on their roster. But it would be really, really interesting to see what happens. Let's take a look at at the defenders, because I personally believe, as intrigued as I am with what's going to happen on the attack, I think this is where the most work is needed. And it's not just this window. Like, that's why I wanted to have this conversation with you, Paul, tonight. I think this is like a 2 to 3 window kind of chess game. I think they have to make strategic decisions. So obviously we know the big one, Virgil van Dijk, the captain, contract is up at the end of the season, could sign already with other clubs. I love when people are like, he could go anywhere he wants in the world, but no club in the world has given him a contract he wants to sign yet. Or he really just knows he wants to stay at Liverpool or already has a contract, one or the other. Robertson has 1 year left on his deal. Konate has 1 year left on his deal. Bradley, Simicast, and Kwanzaa each have multi-year contracts, and Joe Gomez just signed a long-term contract last summer. Someone will need to explain it to me why. So let's put Virgil on the shelf for a moment here, Paul. What are you doing with Konate and Robertson either this summer or over the next few summers? Like, do either of them get a new deal? Are you working hard to sign them? Are you looking to sign a replacement for them? Like, how do you view both Robertson and Konate in the long-term plans for Orange, Slot, Hughes, and Edwards as they rebuild this Liverpool side?
Well, I'll preface this by saying I think Konate is going to end up getting a new deal in some extent. Here's what I would do. I would prioritize selling them. But here's the thing. If Verge isn't re-signing, let's just say he's not re-signing. I believe he is, but let's just say for the sake of argument, he's not. Let's say Trent's gone out the door, which I do believe he is. I think Trent's leaving.
Yeah, so we're gonna talk little on Trent, but that's why I want to start with the guy with contract.
I'm just saying for the premise of my argument, let's say those two things are happening. I don't think you can sell Robertson and Konate, which is why I think Konate is probably getting re-signed. I think you have to hold on to one of those. For me, if it were me, I would sell both Konate and Robertson. If I'm looking at this slate, there's only one player that I don't have a question mark on, and he turns 34 this summer, and it's Van Dijk. Like, Kwanzaa, I have serious questions on whether he's like Liverpool's level, like going forward. Like, I know he's young, and I know they develop, and I know like that may seem harsh.
Can I just stop you right here? And I understand defenders develop later. He is 6 months younger than Gravenberch. Everybody talks about him like he's 14.
Right.
He's a year and a half older than Szoboszlai, or a year and a half younger than Szoboszlai. Like, we talk about him. I think he's younger than Harvey Elliott. Like, or older than Harvey Elliott. This Gerald Kwanzaa is so young thing. No, he just wasn't on our radars until he was forced upon us last year. And then he was kind of forced upon the manager or the head coach, it felt like, this year. And it didn't go so well for him. I will give him credit. Unless he takes a huge step forward, in my opinion, between now and the start of next season, like if he comes into next season any higher than 4th on the depth chart of center backs, we failed the summer. And if Virgil van Dijk is not here and he's 4th, we're in even more trouble, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, it's grim. When you look at this, you can shelve Van Dijk and Bradley. Let's take those out of this equation. If you look at the rest of this and you assume Trent's gone, that leaves you with Costas, Kwanzaa, Robertson, Gomez, Konate, right? Robertson, you got serious age and durability concerns. Konate, you have durability concerns. Gomez, you have durability concerns. Costas and Kwanzaa, you have quality concerns. Like, are they good enough, both those players? So this is really this is almost like an entire reset of wipe and replace, which is why what you said of being a multi-window project makes sense.
And even with Bradley, as good as he's shown at times, he's looked great because he's come in at times for a Trent who at times wasn't in great form and was, not defending well. And he comes in and he gets stuck in for a game or two and he gives you a good 30-minute run. Conor Bradley hasn't shown that he can be a starting right back in the Premier League. And he surely hasn't shown that he has the mental makeup to replace a kid from around the corner that is leaving for big money, that fans and supporters, like if we've ever made a player a martyr, like if we've ever taken a great player and turned him into a legend, wait until Trent leaves, because it is going to be like none of all those people who made all the posts about not defending, not tracking back, an embarrassment on the pitch against United. All of that will be forgotten for the 70-yard pinged passes, the crossfield balls and the runs into midfield. It's such a huge job for any player. It's why I believe, as much as Mo means to this side, I don't even think it's close when it comes to the importance of which of those 3 players stays. I think re-signing Virgil van Dijk, even if it's just to a 2-year deal and you have to slightly overpay, and that overpayment means you don't get to keep Konate or you don't get to re-sign Mo, I think Van Dijk is more important. I think if you told me I could only sign one of them, I would honestly probably tell you to re-sign Van Dijk. And I think then maybe I would see if Real Madrid or PSG or someone was willing to give me a profit on Konate and reinvest that money and the wages you get from Mo and the wages you get from not paying Trent and the war chest you have out there, and you go buy yourself a partner for him, a young partner that can maybe become the number 1 as he moves on. Maybe you can keep Kwanzaa and Gomez and you get a 5th, and then maybe you reinvest and you get a Kirkez or something, and then you move Robertson on in a year or so. Like I just don't think more than 2 of these players can leave. And I think the guy in the center square is already planning on wearing white in Madrid next year.
Well, let's assume Trent goes. Who else are you selling?
If Van Dijk stays, I'm probably selling Konate. I would try to sell Tsimikas if I could get a fee for him, because I just don't think he's good enough. I think you have to be careful with Robertson. I love huge fan of Kirkez at Bournemouth. I've made it clear here well before it was coming out. People talk all the time. How could you replace a world-class player like Trent who has a wand of a right foot? The first answer might be sign a young Hungarian with a wand of a left. That's somewhat of an answer, and then just shift and have Bradley be the guy who's just all hustle and bustle and play from the back. So it'll be interesting. Aaron needs to jump in and talk some smack. Gally, what's the plan for the U.S. parade, given it's going to be very quiet in Liverpool city center? Not sure, Aaron, unless you think they're not going to win the league. I'm going to tell you right now, Liverpool was never having a fucking parade for the League Cup, okay, brother? So we lost over 2 legs in which we drew and lost on penalties to the best side in Europe. And that is right. over the last 90 days, PSG has been a much better side than Liverpool has, and nobody's getting close to them. I wouldn't be shocked if PSG goes on and wins it. But we always appreciate you bringing that negativity, because how could we handle this international break without a little bit of it? I'll get back to the transfers here, Paul. I'll say this. I think the defenders are troubling. I do think it'll take a couple windows, and I think Van Dijk is the linchpin to all of it. I think any one of those players, though, on that screen, except for Bradley, and maybe Gomez, because just think he's proven now he wants to be at the club. He wants his 10 or 15 years there, and he's just going to ride it out. Doesn't feel like he's going to go search first team football at this point of his career. I think you keep him as luxury cover all over, but I think you got to buy at least 2, if not 3 players, regardless of who goes. So I'll say Van Dijk signs, and it's one of Konate or Robertson out the door with him. And like I said, Trent is already playing for Madrid, unfortunately. Let's take a look here at the midfielders. So we're talking here, Endo, McAllister, Szoboszlai. Let's just chalk up that none of the starting midfielders are leaving, right? I don't believe McAllister, Szoboszlai, Gravenberch. I know I'm probably in the minority because the form is not great right now. I don't think that there's any chance that a homegrown player with a long-term contract in Curtis Jones is going anywhere, especially the fact that the manager has actually shown faith in him in multiple positions. Still not sure the setup has found his best role. I think it would be better as like Gravenberch backup, and actually giving Gravenberch a break every once in a while might actually help as well. I think we can both assume Tyler Morton is on his way out, which would be best for his professional career. Kind of unfair that Fatma didn't throw McConnell up here, seeing that he's had more senior appearances than Tyler Morton this year. But talk to me about your boy Endo. Talk to me about Harvey Elliott. Are one here, both here? What do we think?
Oh, man, this is tough. That's a big call for the manager to make. If it were me, I'd move Harvey. I know that's not going to be a popular take with a lot of people. I would move Harvey. I would re-sign Endo to a 1 or 2 year bumper. I think Endo gives you a lot of versatility. He's proven that even at his age, he's still got a lot of juice left in his legs because he just hasn't played as many club minutes as some of these guys do. So I'm re-signing Endo. I'm moving Harvey, and I'm probably investing at least 2 more bodies into this midfield. And I want them to be people that can compete in a way that really pushes McAllister and Gravenberch for first team minutes, in a way that forces the manager into playing the most fit in-form 11 across the board. We talk about how we have, right now when we look at the side, there's a clear starting 3 that are locked into the starting 11, right? Between McAllister, Szoboszlai, and Gravenberch. What I'd like to see is that essentially be 6 in a perfect world, and those 6 don't have clear separation from each other. That's probably really, really idealistic and not very realistic, but that's what I'd like to see.
So I will apologize if I did. Aaron has made sure I know that I misunderstood him. He was actually talking about the supporters, both in the city and in the grounds. It sounds like we used to be loud after COVID. He mentions how there's some bars here in the United States that are a little bit louder. I got to get to that bar in New York City, I guess, because I went to Anfield and it was pretty damn loud, and it was post-COVID. But I do understand the sentiment. I do think there's been a shift and a change. But let's not get into the American tourists ruining Anfield. Not that that's what Aaron is saying, but God knows what will happen over the pond if they hear us talking about supporters and how loud they are. I was actually, Aaron, I was over there for my first match ever in the final match of the year in 2022 against Wolves, when we thought we were going to win the league as Villa went up 2-0. Still the greatest sporting event I've ever been to, and I know I've reminded people here, I saw the Boston Red Sox actually clinch Game 6 of the World Series. And the best sporting event I ever went to was at Anfield, and it's not even close. I think one of the biggest things, Paul, that's going to play a big, big part on what we do in the midfield, it's going to be what happens with the attack. Because I see, and we're going to get to the attack and probably spend the rest of the program kind of talking about that. This midfield does its job, but I almost feel like it's in a hybrid role. Like, I don't know that this midfield is actually doing the job that Arne Slot wants his midfield to do, but the job that the midfield that Jurgen Klopp and that regime left him, along with the right back that plays like a number 10. And I think you have to ask the players around them to do different things. Like, could you imagine if Szoboszlai was like, hey, how great would it be if you got me an attacker that ran as much as I did so I didn't have to bleep and run so much? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I do think there's something there that if we start to actually play more of that Arne Slot Feyenoord style of football where, and we've talked about it before, right? Trent Alexander-Arnold wants to win the Ballon d'Or as a midfielder at right back, and Arne Slot just wants a right back. And what profile of player do you think this midfield is lacking the most? We were all in on Zubamendi, right, in the summer. We thought he was a perfect fit, felt like he fit, probably might have hindered seeing what Gravenberch was all about and that we had this class player, because I do think he would have walked in and started in that position alongside McAllister. So do you like McAllister deeper? Would you like to see them get another deeper midfielder and find a formation that allows him and Szoboszlai to play together? Almost, Bart, comparing it to the United side, but almost playing with 2 10s.
Yeah, I mean, it's like we've talked about this for 10 years or so, man. You know me. I would like to see a ball-winning midfielder, like a deep-seated. Like, I don't think we ever really replaced what we lost in Fabinho. And that's not to say that we need to go get essentially a sentinel that six is a six, because I don't think Slot usually plays like that or wants that. But it would be nice to have that versatility, even if it's a player that's in a double pivot, a player that can drop back into that. We obviously know Endo can do it, but that's not the ideal situation with him. You want to be able to plug him in late in games and close things out. Very similar to how you use Milner. So I would like to see us go get somebody who can do a lot of the things that Fabinho used to do, where he would just basically sit back there like a Roomba and clean up. I think that allows you to get the best in both players. If you're playing him in a double pivot with Gravenberch, it allows Gravenberch to be more of a holding role, almost like that Genie ball retention role that we saw for so many years with Wijnaldum. And it allows McAllister to go further forward if playing with that. So I think it solves a lot of the issues you have and knits a lot of like those things before. I don't think that either McAllister or Gravenberch kind of gravitate to that role naturally.
Sir Z is in the house. Good evening, gents. Thank you for your kind messages. Of course, my friend. Jumped on because I needed the distraction. What do you think we do with Bajcetic? And it's not a bad question, seeing that. And look at that timing. We're on the midfielders. Paul, do you think he probably needs another year on loan, specifically because the first half of the season went with such little fanfare while he was at RB Salzburg because Pep Linders moves on? Do you think he gets a chance back at the club at some point, maybe over the summer, to try to impress Arne Slot and see if maybe he could play one of these extended roles? Do you think McConnell, Nioni, one of these kids has a chance to cement themselves not as a first teamer by any means, but as a legitimate squad option for the 2026 campaign?
I really struggle with these questions that have to do with evaluation, right? Because it just really comes down to that. It comes down to what the manager thinks when they see him, right? I think when you look at Bajcetic, like he's 20. Like, to me, it's like I know that's still really young, but I think for a player his profile and his pedigree, like the club needs to make a decision of like, is this player? I think that he either needs to be a part of the rotation very much in the way he did Jones, or he needs to be sold. And I feel really strongly on that. I don't think it benefits the club or the player to have him out on loan for another year, because I think he's good enough that if he does well on loan, he could have done that for you instead of going out and hitting the transfer market for more depth, or he's good enough that you can sell and get a good evaluated price at now. That's just my feeling.
Brian Shelton says McConnell is a squad option. Neone still needs to put on weight. I completely agree. You see flashes in Neone, but then you also see he's just not physically ready to compete at this level in the Premier League day in and day out. I will say I never believed McConnell had a shot. But when you hear a manager talk about him the way he talked about him, both like during trainings, when he talks about him in pre-match pressers, after cameos, I mean, he gushed about him after the PSV match. Like he was the senior veteran on the pitch. Not that Chiesa went out there and peed on his leg. Like literally, like it was McConnell that held things together and even gave us a chance to knit it and give us the opportunity. So I like McConnell. He also looks like he has the grit to fight for a spot that I don't know if any of the other kids actually have. And I think at times Jones looks like he feels like he deserves to be the fourth or fifth, where I think McConnell is like, I will literally bite your kneecaps off if it means getting a better chance. Like there's nothing that's going to stop me from fighting for this. And I love that type of player, obviously. But I still don't know if that's good enough. And I still question.
Drop a Dan Campbell quote in there?
I think I did just drop a Dan Campbell. I did not talk about kicking a one-ass cheek man, though, because that was brutal. That was by far the best one ever. You know, they're going to kick his ass, even if he's got one ass cheek. You're like, wait, you're not. Now we're taking on the disabled? What's going on here, Dan? Let's take a look at the front. So this is the craziest for me, Paul, because I think if you take Cody Gakpo off this list, you can make a strong argument that none of the other five will be on this roster next year. I think we both know that would be even Edwards, even his cockiness, confidence, arrogance, whatever you want to call it, wouldn't be that you can replace the entire five, attacking triumvirate. So if we pencil Gakpo to still be here, and I genuinely believe there are some at Liverpool that believe the best thing in the world is to re-sign Mo Salah at their number. If it's not at their number, I think they are comfortable to let him go, because I honestly believe they think that they can just roll the fulcrum of this offense to the left-hand side if they have to and run it through Gakpo. Because I think they have a budgeting star that is like ready to take that next step up. And I think we started to see it before the injury and the kind of downturn form that he's gone through recently based on his fitness. But put Gakpo on the shelf. I'll ask you, Brian Shelton says he thinks Salah will stay. He also thinks Chiesa will be here next year, which I'm not so sure I'm 100% sure on. But I'm going to ask you, Paul, this one I am going to put you on the spot because I think it dictates how this conversation goes. Is Mo Salah going to be here next year, or is he going to be playing somewhere else?
I think he's here. I think if he wasn't going to be here, there would have been more noise. I think he would have. I just have the way that he's spoken to the press and the way that he's played, and he doesn't speak a lot to the press, right? But like the things that he has said and the way that he has played and the way that he's conducted himself lately leads me to believe he's staying. Could be wrong. I think he's staying. I think Gakpo is obviously locked in. I agree that Jota and Nunez are out. I am 50-50 on Chiesa, and I'm like 60-40 Diaz stays. And I say that because we know how much work this squad needs and how much turnover there's going to be. We know that this is a multi-window project. And I really think that if you look at the way this squad is lined up, like Diaz offers you the most versatility of any of those remaining players with the best fitness record. And I think that availability is important, right? Because like you can't use what's not available. And that goes for Jota. That goes for like players like Gomez. That plays like, like their versatility doesn't matter if they're hurt. And so like, I think that's why I kind of give that, like, I part of me really understands moving Diaz because it makes sense. You get good value for him. You can kind of like improve on that. But I think with the shape of this squad, it's degenerated to the point where like you have to value that fitness and that versatility combination somewhat when you look at what that is.
It is true. I mean, when we say, we were quoting Dan Campbell earlier, and I've said this before. Bill Belichick used to always say, and I can't stand the New England Patriots, but he always used to say the number one ability is availability. Yep. Like it's more, and then Bill Parcells' big line was, "You can't get in the club in the tub," and that one is like the most outstanding of all time, right? Like you don't get in the club if you're in the tub. So, and God knows we've had enough sick notes on this side that we've got quite the folks lined up at the hot tub, but. The thing with Diaz is this. I do think he offers you some versatility. I think people are going to think I'm absolutely crazy here when I say this. I think because of Jota's rapid decline, and it's not just his fitness and being on the pitch, it's what he does on the pitch. And if you look at his underlying numbers, they've been bad for over a year, even when he was scoring goals earlier this season. And I don't know if you saw the image where it showed the thing that Peter Crouch has 2 goals at Anfield since January 1st of 2025, and Darwin, Diaz, and Jota have 1. Like that's pretty outstanding, and scary, right? All at once. I think there's an actual chance that Darwin Nunez is on this roster next year, and I think it's to your point. I think it might be because you know what you have with him. He's not going to be your starting number 9, but you can make him a serviceable player. And to Darwin's credit, he is the second most fit attacker we've had at the club since the day he signed his contract. He's almost always available. You don't always want to pick him, but he's almost always available to the manager. And I do think if you were to think of a world where Mo isn't here and you're retooling the front, there may be a change in the philosophy of what you're asking of these players. And who knows, maybe even we go to a world where our biggest signing this year is a midfielder and we start playing with 4 mids and 2 attackers, and you're playing that fluid Mo and Gakpo up top with runners around them.
I think we tend to prioritize on like what can we get the most for. And I think when the squad degenerates to this extent, you almost have to prioritize by what you lose the least out of, like when you get rid of somebody, right? Like, and I think with Jota, you almost lose the least amount because like he was not available. You kind of got to play him a specific way. Like he doesn't have a ton of tactical versatility.
I don't think he fits our slot system as much as we all hoped he would. Because I think as we've seen the system evolve as the season's gone on, his importance has waned.
Yeah.
And I still think, and I know maybe it's maybe it is the Italian supporter in me. Maybe it's just the fact that I was a Chiesa supporter when he came. It feels to me like he has that versatility you're talking about with Diaz. He can play all 3 spots. He can play in the 10. He could play next to Szoboszlai and do the running and the work and allow for 2 strikers, and he could interchange with them. Like, there's so much versatility if Chiesa could get going, and who knows? Maybe this was the beginning of it, and he just really was earning his fitness and earning his stripes. Maybe they were keeping him under wraps, just trying to see if they could kind of groom him into year 2, so it wasn't too much pressure on him. I guess my thing with Diaz is this. He supposedly is the one who is like lukewarm about a contract extension because he knows there's rumblings of Barcelona. And this brings me back to the Suarez and Coutinho references early. If you have a South American player at Liverpool that you know's dream is to play for Barcelona, and Barcelona is already making overtures that they're interested, doesn't he bring probably the most intrinsic value of anyone?
Sure. Yeah.
And to your point, yes, you have to think about what you lose if you sell a player. But when you have so many players coming up on contract and so many players going into the last 12 months of their contract, you're already about to lose 3 of your best assets for nothing. I would be a real hypocrite after screaming for 5 years on this podcast about not selling players that have value and holding on to them until they're depressed assets. So to me, it almost feels like you have to entertain selling Diaz this summer if you can. But to do that, I think you need to make shrewd signings. Like, I think there has to be, especially if Mo goes, there has to be like a Gyökeres, an Isak, like there has to be an Alvarez. Like there has to be that level of player. And I will say this, I know he was in the video, and I don't want to diminish what those stupid Argentinian players did. I do always like to remind people that for all we know, McAllister was taking a dump in the bus when they filmed the video. And if not, he would have been in the screen singing with his teammates. We don't know how that whole thing shook out, but I do know this. Julian Alvarez would fit into this system like a glove, playing through the middle. And he's a clinical striker. And I think he's the reason City took a monster step back. If you could get a player like that, I almost feel like he's proven his fitness levels are actually at a higher level than Isak's, even though I think Isak may have a higher ceiling than maybe Alvarez does as a player.
You know what?
But even that's a question.
Dude, like, I know this is probably feels like an unfair comparison. I get, like, when I look at Isak,
you get Bobby vibes.
No, I love watching him play. You know who he gives me vibes of, though? He's unbelievable. I love watching him. I get Sturridge vibes from him, man. Like, he just, to me, he has a real hard time consistently being available.
Oh, you mean Isak?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about Alvarez.
No,
just with the dropping
Alvarez
deep
for sure gives me Bobby vibes. But I'm talking Isak. I get Sturridge vibes from him. Unbelievably talented, clinical as hell, can't stay healthy.
On his day, he might be the best striker in the Premier League, and that includes Erling Haaland all around on his day. The problem is 1 out of 5 of those days, he's unavailable.
Yeah.
So we went through the whole side here. Obviously, we did a little potpourri. Hopefully, we appreciate everyone in the comments. Hopefully, you enjoyed the conversation. Paul and I didn't know what we were going to talk about for 58 minutes. We appreciate your comments. They helped us through the whole thing. The truth of the matter is our goal here was to talk about what could happen in transfers without actually talking about the rumor mills that are transfers. So my plea to all of you is enjoy this. Enjoy this. There's 9 matches left, 10 matches left, whatever it is. Actually, it's 9 matches left. Enjoy this from here till the end. Because you know what? 2 years ago, nobody thought Liverpool was anywhere close to winning a league title ever again. Not for a long time. We were in a weird place. We had to buy 4 different midfielders. Then the manager decides to leave midway through the season. And then the wheels fall off and we get knocked out of the competitions. And we fall out of a title race we probably didn't have any business being in last season. We get a new manager. We energize everything. I seriously, like, I implore everyone, just enjoy this. Because, you know, people went 30 years, 50 years without seeing this club win the league. And we're about to do it 2 times in a decade. And this time we're going to get to do it with supporters inside Anfield. And if it means Trent and Virgil and Mo go off into the sunset, clap them off and remember it. I don't believe they're all going to go, but I'm not going to let that storyline wane or ruin this for me. And I hope it doesn't ruin it for any of you as supporters. So, Paul, anything here on our way out?
No, that's well said, man. I think sometimes we just get so granular when we follow this stuff, we fail to step back and look at the big picture. And like, if you told any of us like at the beginning of the season we'd go on and win a league title, we would have laughed at you or tore your arm off in the deal. So yeah, big picture is it's pretty incredible season.
Thank you to everyone who is on YouTube. Those of you who came to us through X, those on Facebook, please go ahead, like the whatever you're streaming us on, give it a like, drop a comment, share it with a friend. If you know people who might want to get involved with us, whether it be as a contributor, a volunteer, just want to talk Premier League content with us on some of our Premier League shows. So supporters of other clubs, send us a message. We would greatly appreciate it. We will all be back later this week. We have a bunch more programs. And, of course, Bickler, myself, and Tamushin will be back next Monday as we preview all of the action coming up from the Premier League. And I'm sure we'll even touch a little bit on the FA Cup. And God knows we'll probably talk a transfer or two. We appreciate you listening, viewing, as always. Have a great week, and we will talk to you soon.